You guys are all kind of from all different walks of life and different backgrounds, and like Brina's the one who kind of has brought everybody in together. So I just want to share a little bit about me, and then if anyone has any type of questions or anything like that, please let me know. Um, so long story short, my name is Nika, and I immigrated to the United States in the 90s, and I have been battling for decades a lot of autoimmune issues and a lot of health stuff, and as well, I'm also a child of extreme trauma growing up, and through all of that stuff, that kind of led me into starting my own company, not because I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but more of the case that there was kind of a need, that there was like a void um, for especially, people who, grew up kind of had a similar story, like I grew up in New York, so it wasn't exactly easy peasy in the 90s back then, the way it's kind of getting into Gotham City now. Um, and through all my different medical ailments and so on and so forth, I was actually able to successfully cure all of my illnesses completely naturally and holistically. And once I was able to kind of heal all the physical ailments that I had, and I was misdiagnosed with like leukemia and sickle cell, and the last diagnoses with fibromyalgia. And once I was able to kind of get the health back on track and I wasn't fighting my body anymore, I was actually able to start working on the mental and the emotional part, which, I was 35 at the time, so I didn't really realize how much unpacking and working through I had to do, how much of that childhood trauma like really affected me and still was living within me, right? And I think any of us on this panel who've gone through any type of trauma know, or maybe haven't realized it yet, that if you're still holding on to it, you're still allowing the people that have victimized you and have hurt you to keep victimizing and hurting you. And once I was able to kind of sort out the mental and the emotional, this whole world of spirituality opened. So I am an intuitive integrative wellness life coach, and I work with people of various ages, from all different walks of life, from infertility issues to PTSD to mental health to fibromyalgia to sex addiction, you name it. And the one thing I want to talk about just briefly today, and then obviously the floor is for everyone that has any questions, is I love the fact that everyone on this panel is here out of the goodness of their heart, right? Like no one's getting paid to be here, and I think that's such a powerful thing. That Brina's bringing all of us together. But I just want all of you guys to remember why you started here and what is keeping you here, and to not give up on that path, because we're all really needed. Especially, I feel like there's a big disconnection with the generation that's coming underneath us. It's the teens, the preteens. COVID was really rough on this generation of kids, and the different levels that we've been seeing of suicide and mental health and so on and so forth. You ladies are more important than you even realize. So I want to just applaud, slow clap, to all of you guys for doing what you're doing, and to stay kind of connected to that mission and to yourselves and to this panel.
Thank
So if anyone
you.
has any questions.
I love her.
Me
I
too. Thank
appreciate
you
that.
so much.
I appreciate that. You guys don't make me blush. My dimple might come out.
I love her.
But no, thank you. Honestly, and just to let you guys know, we didn't rehearse this. I didn't know what she was gonna say. Um,
No, there's no
um,
rehearsal in my world, girls. I don't have enough time for that.
and with that being said, I just want you all to also know she is someone who will also be on our panel coming up, and I'm glad that she is here to support us along the way. She is located in Washington, D.C., but she's able to still give us some of her time, which is very appreciated because obviously she's a police officer. There's other things that's taking place as we speak, and she's taking time out to be here for us. If you have any questions in regards to anything, remember she's also a life coach as well. So she's here in an open book right now to ask those questions. Just saying.
Yeah, if you guys need any advice on anything or know anyone that's dealing with anything, please, like, I have a solid 15 minutes to give you guys. You know what I mean? And I apologize. I really don't mean you know, smash and dash in a way. And yes, cheers to the Starbucks fans. This gets me through my day, my black teas. But yeah, any questions, please feel free. I'm very much an open book. I gave you guys a very Cliff Notes version of, my journey up to the point where I'm at in my life today. And I have to say, I just turned 40 in October, and I didn't think I'd be here. So I didn't have a life plan for 40. So I'm kind of like lost in the sauce, and I'm just kind of going with the flow. I'm letting life kind of develop the way it's meant to be, right? And at 40, I look the best I've ever looked. I feel the best I've ever looked. I can go to the gym now, and my body doesn't feel like it's breaking into 1,000 pieces. I don't have nightmares and cold sweats anymore like the way I did for decades. Like, I sleep. I look tired of shit because I got 2 hours of sleep last night. But, on an average night, I can get about 4 to 5 hours in between shifts. And that sounds so silly in a lot of ways. But, when you go through all the things that, I've gone through, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here. Like, I'm not special, unfortunately, right? Like, trauma strikes all of us in different ways, and we have all different experiences. But, I'm very glad to be a part of this. And I think, I love Brina. I think she's an amazing young lady. And, I want to definitely give her as much support on anything I can. So if there's any questions or any curiosities, please, there's no question too small or too big, because you never know how it might affect somebody else on the panel.
I don't have a question, but I do want to say that I super appreciate you coming and sharing because it's not so easy to share yourself with people, especially emotional things. So I do want to say that I super appreciate that and I thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll be really, really honest with you, right? When people talk about emotions, I think we've kind of lost like a true sense of what emotions really are. An emotion is just something you're supposed to feel, but it's not supposed to be something that you sit in and you fester in, right? So I'm at this stage in my life where, I'm also an instructor for my agency as well. And, within law enforcement, there's a lot of suicides and a lot of different things that we deal with, and, a lot of different stressors that somebody who doesn't wear the 22 pounds of gear every day will never understand. And that's okay, right? Because we all got to come from different places. But I think the more that we are honest about how we really think and how we really feel, and we vocalize those things, and I don't mean it in like a victim way, but just in a matter of fact way, like, hey, I share that experience too. I think that is such a powerful thing that we can do. And I think in a lot of ways it kind of falls to women, right? Because we have this amazing ability to communicate, right? Like, how many of you guys have gotten dressed up, put, the cute outfit on for the girls' night out, and somebody's crying into their martini at the end of the night? And everyone's like, oh my God, girl, I got you, right? But then, right? But then when you look at the way men communicate, right? And because, I'm the only girl in my whole family, and, I got nothing but brothers that I work with all day in blue, and majority of my close friends are men. The way men deal with stuff is, hey, bro, you good? Oh, yeah, my wife left me. Damn, that sucks. Did you see the game though last night? Right? There's no emotional connection or vulnerability there within that population. So I think as women, if we start to communicate emotionally, not in I don't even want to say the word dramatic. I don't think that's maybe like the right word, but in a more maybe effective way, I think that's going to teach, especially the younger generation, to be more honest and expressive about their feelings, because I truly believe this trauma with children needs to stop, right? Like, at
Mhm.
some point, the buck has to stop, right? The child abuse, right? Whether it's mental, emotional, physical, sexual, something needs to give. And the sad part is, most people don't have these conversations until they get into a later stage in their life. But now 30, three, four, five, six generations have gone by, and there's all of these kids underneath you now that have all gone through that stuff. And I think if we start becoming more comfortable with talking about these things, not in a, oh, I'm a victim, woe is me type of way, but in like a, shit, this happened to me too, right? And this sucked. But guess what? Like, I understand where you came from, right? That happened to you too. So the more that we can kind of have these conversations in like a fruitful way, in a more productive way, I would hope with that openness, we would be able to kind of touch the younger generations and, let them know, like, hey, that person that touched you that way or the person that's abusing you that way, like that's not supposed to happen to you. You know, like that's not okay what's happening to you. But so many kids go back to abusive homes and are in abusive backgrounds, and for them that's status quo. And that's, I think, a big part of it is because we as the adults aren't honest about what we've gone through, right? You have to have that vulnerability, I believe, to like really truly be able to connect, especially with this younger generation who's a little socially, a little retarded, right? Like they just stare at their phones all day and they can't even do eye contact majority of the times. So, I think the more of us that are put our kind of hearts on our sleeves, I think that's going to be really beneficial to everybody around us, especially the younger generation coming underneath.
I agree 100%. Because it's not always what you say, but sometimes it's how you say it. And like you said, don't fester in it, don't dwell on it, have the conversation, go through the emotion, and then keep going. Don't just stay there.
100%.
Yeah, completely agree. Like I've had so many kids where, again, I always try to teach my kids that feelings are temporary. They come, they go, they stay sometimes. Just, don't linger in it. But I've had so many kids where they're all on social media because again, COVID did hit hard and they do have influence like Kai Cenat and all of their bad influences, but they're following them. But you wouldn't believe how many teenagers I've met that say they're depressed, and I'm like, "Why do you think you're depressed?" And they're like, "'Cause I'm sad all the time." And I'm like, "Do you know like that's an emotion? It's a feeling." And because they label themselves as like depressed and they're really not, they stay in it. They think that's all they are and they become that emotion literally. So I'm glad that we all are here and we all are helping because they really do need us. They need more of us, to be honest. So really appreciate you for pointing that out.
Yeah, I would love to piggyback on that. So I'll give you guys a personal story. I have a really good homegirl up in New York, and she decided to have kids during COVID because she already had almost two grown kids out of her house. So they rekindled the romance and stuff. So she had a 13 and 14-year old, and then she had a 1-year old and pregnant, right? And so she's born and raised in Queens, and her daughter Alyssa comes home one day and tells her she's not Alyssa, her name's Al, and she's a boy. That's hard. That's a hard conversation to be had, right? Especially if you guys are familiar with New York. New York is like super liberal, so on and so forth. So, like all parents, they're like, I don't know what the hell to do, right? And, regardless of your stance on the whole transgender conversation or not, I'm a big believer that whether you call it God, universe, whatever, there's no mistakes in the way that you look and the body that you came in. You were put in this vehicle to experience this existence, right? So Alyssa got super suicidal, tried to commit suicide 3 times as she was going through this transition, right? Come to find out, two of the teachers in the school were like really pushing down this like LGBTQ, pronouns, kind of confusing the kids, right? Like other parents were trying to step up to it, and you had to she ended up with going from Alyssa to Al to they them, right? I mean, in a span of months. And I ended up stepping in, because I've known these girls, for years. This is my homegirl from back in the day. And God, it was so hard, man. This kid was so confused and she was so angry and she was depressed and she was, like she's all of this. I mean, this is a 13-year-old girl. Like who remembers being 13? You're hormonal as shit, right? You have all these physical shit happening to your body. Like, you know what I mean? With all these, like it's a lot, right? For those of us who remember that, right? And my friend actually ended up having a drastic move and moving outside of New York. She ended up moving to upstate. And the crazy thing is, she wasn't trying to, she didn't tell her daughter at any point in time, like, no, you're wrong, you're not born in the wrong body, or like she really tried to like be supportive. She was really, trying to do the best she could. I worked with her for a few sessions, but the biggest change happened when she moved out of that school system and she went to what we would known as like a traditional school, right? Where they're not harboring on pronouns and all this other stuff, but like, multiplication tables, right? And it was an amazing change to see. The reason I bring that story up is because all of these kids are so sad and they're so depressed because there's one main thing that they're missing. And in a lot of ways, it's our generation's fault for doing this to them. They're missing this thing called fuel, and which is energy, right? So the vehicle, the body requires food, it requires water, it requires food. You eat bad food, you get fat. You don't eat anything, you get too skinny, right? Like being exaggerated, right? In my point. But this communication, imagine how much more richer it would all feel for us if we were all able to sit down at a table with some delicious food and some drinks or whatever, and really felt that energy exchange, right? These kids are starving energetically because even when they all get together, they just sit in a room and on their phones. Their best friend is scrolling, and scrolling is so damaging for the psyche, right? For them, the mental and emotional development of the child. It's also bad for a whole adult, right? I mean, it, think about, like, I know we're all different generations, but I'm like the last generation that used a typewriter to put my, to write my reports. I didn't have to contend with anything but the magazine that maybe came in the mail once a month that told me I wasn't, skinny enough, my butt was too big, my boobs were too small. This is the color of the season I should be wearing, right? All of that type of stuff. But I was able to close that magazine and put it away, right? You're now, as a girl specifically, you're competing with artificial intelligence. Everybody uses a filter. There is no more, little bit of, little weight around the belly. There's no more, cellulite on the butt and the legs, right? Because all of these kids are literally being set to this standard that's completely, you can't achieve it, right? Like, I mean, you know what? I'll take that back. You can go to Colombia or the DR, spend a few thousand, get your whole body done, right? But the problem is we focus so much now on the physical, we're forgetting to feed this generation with our energies, our stories, our experience, our knowledge. And think of all the things you guys learned from your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your older brothers or sisters, if you have some, right? You used to sit around the table, right, on Sunday, for example, and maybe have those conversations. How many holidays do you remember of laughing, and you didn't have all this technology to stimulate you? You didn't have Netflix and chill. You didn't, you know what I mean? Going to the movies was a big thing. Your $5 matinee, and then your whole friend group just hung out because you were poor, right? You're all kids, and you would talk about it. These kids will go to a movie and be on their phone the entire damn time. This is a generation starved of energy, and it's our fault as the oldest generation because what we've done is we've put an iPad in front of their faces at the restaurant to shut them up and keep them quiet. We've given them a phone in the back of the car in order for them to be entertained so we can drive in peace. But what we're doing is we're starving them energetically. These kids are starved. So I hope that kind of makes sense. I know, we're just rolling with the conversation, but I hope you kind of all understand my point with that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Even for my 6-year-old, I told him he only get an hour a day on some kind of electronic, and the rest of that time is spent with us reading, talking, having that conversation. He knows there's no phone at the table while we're eating. When we go out to eat, like when we're driving out of town, you're either writing in a dictionary. That's why he's reading a chapter book right now. I don't play, like, and like you said, I'm a teacher as well, and so I teach my kids, like I teach pre-K. But I always tell them every morning, like we made up our own song, and I tell them, I say, pop yourself. I say, you feel that, right? So we talk about feelings every single morning, and we talk about how it's important because some kids, they'll tell me they're, I got them saying this word perplexed, so they'll say they're confused or whatever. But I'm brightening up their like brightening their their vocabulary, and I'm teaching them all these things, and we're having conversations. And now, like when they talk to their parents like, they said this word, I don't know what they're saying, because you're on your phone all the time. You're not giving this kid this conversation. You're not talking. So we talk about feelings. And when I don't have their feelings, I'm like, Miss Pierce, you didn't say anything about my feelings this morning. You didn't ask me this. We have conversations. I don't give them games all day. It's in the generation now, they don't talk. The parents don't want to apologize. The parents don't want to have those conversations with them that is needed. Even though my mom said all the time, me and my sister teach her a lot, like, because I tell her, you have to apologize. You have to break the generational curse somewhere. COVID put everybody in a transit, even adults, and it's like that should have done a lot because you didn't have all the electronics and stuff to put these kids in front of, and then you guys now they're more subjected to abuse, they're more subjected to rapes and all of these things during COVID. Let's have this hard conversation. That's the thing, y'all want to get away from these hard conversations, and that's why these kids now all the homework online on their phone instead of having talking to them and giving them paper and pencil. They don't know how to do anything. So it's like we have to, as us being in this group, going out there talking to these youth, doing things or whatever, and getting out in the community and raising this awareness because these parents, some of them don't even show up for their kid. You know, it's a lot.
100%. Yeah, and you know what it is? I think it's more than talking. I think it's showing. I think a big thing is like putting your money where your mouth is, right? I mean, how many times do you see people that talk the good talk, but they don't do any of the walking, right? So these kids are visual, so you have to literally give them the only communication they know, which is visual, right? You got to start with the visual. So you got to really talk. You got to really walk the walk before you can walk the walk. I mean, I've been so grateful. I've always been somebody kids are more drawn to. I prefer animals and kids over adults majority of the time. Sorry, ladies. You know what I mean? But like, you're absolutely right, and I think that's a beautiful thing that you're taking the time for your child to actually enrich himself and become better, and you're challenging him because the bar has been set so low. I mean, it's basically non-existent, right? So, I mean, kudos to you. I think that's fantastic. Imagine if everybody took that time and had those rules and regulations and boundaries within that family structure in order to set a standard that your child needs to reach.
I can give 3 examples. I can give 3 examples, but I wouldn't even fully you can sometimes, I don't know, maybe a majority of the time, I ain't gonna lie. But I can give 3 examples. So I was like in the school system for maybe almost 2 years. And I'm gonna tell you how poor the school system in the county that I was in, not gonna say the specific schools, but they were elementary schools. I was always in pre-K or I was always with the disabled kids. For pre-K, in kindergarten, they have them kids on iPads all day long. It's filled with educational things, but we're not even teaching them anymore. We make sure that they're on the iPad, not wandering off for so many set hours. It's like unbelievable. They even started like implementing the iPad for pre-K and kindergarten to get them to sit down all day. And I thought that was beyond crazy. And then they only
Hmm.
go to the park for 30 minutes a day. And I'm like, these are kids. This is insane.
Yeah.
Then I had like another issue where I was permanently in that class for the rest of the semester, and I was like 4 or 5 months. So I actually ended up getting in trouble because it was just 1 week. I believe it was test week. They have like the little, I don't know what you call them, like the little test they got to take to see where they're at. And my
The
kids
assessments.
were working so hard. They were on their computers, like they were working so hard. And I'm like, you know what? They finished all their work for that week. They did good. I was like, at the end of the day, because that's when they always went to recess. They always went to recess like at 2:20, and school got out, I believe, at 3. I let them stay out there the entire time until like it was time to go and pack up your things. I literally got in so much trouble for that, even though there were no other classes out there. And I'm like, listen, my kids worked their behinds off. They sat down half the day. Then the other half, they were learning materials that I was actually teaching them. And y'all are getting mad because they stayed outside for an extra 15 minutes is insanity. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it was crazy. And then I've even gotten told like it was a sexual predator at the school. He was like, I don't know who he was picking up, maybe his daughter, I don't know. But I notified them that like he was on like the sexual predator list. So I went home. I went like again, I went to go be on break. I went home. I get a phone call from the SRO of the school. He's like, "Can you come back up here, please?" And I was like, "Oh no." So before I even get to the school, I get a call from the principal. She's like, "Don't say anything, let it go. He didn't come on the campus, but the city we're in, all the entrances are like right next to the door. He was right
Hmm.
outside in the parking lot." And she told me don't say anything. So when I got back on campus, before I could even get out the car, he was already meeting me there. So it was just like, like my job, my job, my job. But it's really like they don't really care what the kids do anymore. As long as the kids shut up, they don't act up for 8 hours because they don't want to deal with them. And it's like, honestly, a lot of the school systems employees need to be replaced immediately. ASAP.
Well, so here's the issue, right? You're trying as a teacher, which by the way, I'm realizing a lot of you guys are teachers. Huge applause to you guys because, god damn, you guys are dealing with it all. I think the worst part of your day is probably the administration and the parents, right? But look at you, right? Here you are. All you're trying to do is give 15 minutes. So these kids have 15 minutes of air, vitamin D, moving around, and you're penalized. This is a sick society that we've created. Sick society, and I applaud you for taking a stance. And I mean, being a law enforcement, I get really angry at the fact that I feel like I have to protect and respect people's rights who are the predators and all those types of people, but yet no one is sitting and taking that much account or courtesy or consideration into the victim, into the other people, right, that are uncomfortable or unsafe in that situation. And I think that is so sad. And these kids just, it's like no one is there to not only raise them, but not even there to protect them. Like you said, I mean, spot on, right? Basically, tell them to sit down, shut up, and that's it. And well, let's all medicate them, right? Because who the hell could sit basically 8 hours in a seat drowning on? I mean, it's been proven over and over again that the brain, after 15 minutes, when it's not being challenged or stimulated, shuts down. And idle hands is the devil's playground. And I don't mean it necessarily in a religious sense. I just mean that in that's basically what happens. So then you have all these kids that have no physical movement. They go home, they sit on their phones. Parents don't want their kids out in the streets because it's not safe anymore. I grew up in New York, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up in a bad era, but I still was able to go outside as long as I got my, butt back home before the lights went off, right? Now, you got to be careful. You have a pretty little girl or boy, God forbid somebody tries to snatch them. Like, now you have phones for your kids for safety, but that just encourages them to be on the phones and more disconnected than ever. Like, we got to make a change. And I think we have complete power and ability to make that change with each individual one of us, as well as when we band together as a collective. And I think that's why these conversations are so important. And like I told Brianna, like when I met her, I said, Brina, you let me know whatever you want to do. I got you because I'm all about the action. All right, let's start actually making some proper changes in what we're seeing, you know?
I agree. I agree. And I told you I'm gonna call. But yes, I agree. Definitely, like you said, walk the walk and don't just talk about it, but actually do something about it. And I always say what we think is so small can be very big because nobody is doing it. So if nobody is doing it, that little 10% means a lot. And you are a 10% as well. So thank you for your service and thank you for once again taking the time out to be here and talk to us about this topic. Um, it's really appreciated and it's always needed to have these, like you said, to have these conversations.
I'm gonna start wrapping up, ladies. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you. I did drop my email address in there. And I'll actually drop my website too in case anyone wants to look at it, share it. If you know anyone that is in need of anything. If you guys have anything that you need help with, please feel free to reach out. I would love to help you guys in any way that I possibly can. And consider me a new friend on the virtual end of life. And if you need anything at all, you could always, if you can't reach me for some reason via email, please reach out to Labrina and I'm sure she can get us connected. And thank you so much for giving me the time and welcoming me into your space. So I really, really appreciate that.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Have a great weekend. All right.
All
All
right.
right.
You
Be
too.
safe.
Thank you.